topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask Good Questions podcast, broadcasting live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. This week and every week, we will reach for a higher purpose in money and life, as well as a focus on health and wellness. Now, let's join your host, Bonita Bell-Andersen, as together we start with Asking Good Questions.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. We are so excited that you're here with us today. And today I have a very special guest, another one of those great stories of overcoming and resilience. His name is Michael Price, and I'd like to invite him into the studio now. There he is. Welcome, Michael.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Well, great. Michael is coming to us from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I, of course, am coming at you from St. George, Utah, where normally it's been like 70, 80 degrees, but today it's raining, so it's okay. It's a good day for a podcast. So let me tell you a little bit about Mike. And this is his words, and this is a faith-filled man. He says he is a man who loves Jesus first. He is married to his wife, Elise, of 26 years. Together, they have 2 adult children and 2 grandchildren. So he's a grandpa. Are they there in Charlotte?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. That's the best. And what are their ages? What are their grandchildren's ages?
16 months and 14 months.
Oh, you're just having way too much fun then.
I'm having a blast.
So he is a business executive on a mission. He is helping executives and entrepreneurs build thriving careers without sacrificing their faith, their health, or their well-being. He is the vice president of business development for Orion Groups. I had to go look them up. And was recently named president of the C-suite for Christ Charlotte Market. Michael is dedicated to guiding high-level professionals towards success with purpose. His journey to leadership hasn't been without challenges. He's battled anxiety, depression, and was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, struggles that nearly derailed his career and professional life. But instead of letting them define him, he used those hardships as a catalyst for growth. Now he's committed to helping leaders avoid burnout, embrace faith-driven leadership, and learn from his past mistakes. He is building a powerful community of faith-based business leaders, and his message is clear. Success should never come at the cost of your well-being. Ain't that the truth? He is an aspiring author with his first book set to be released later this year. That's awesome. We'll have to have you back when you've got it done. His passion for faith, leadership, and resilience make him a powerful advocate for professionals seeking to lead with integrity without burning out. Such a powerful message in today's world. Well, welcome, Mike.
Well, thanks, Bonita. I'm really, really excited to be here and talk to you today.
Well, great. So in that little introduction, we talked about some adversity that you've faced. Can you tell us a little bit more about that background?
Yeah, so I'll go through this pretty quickly, and we can unpack whatever you want to unpack and go down whatever roads you want to. So I'm going to take everybody back to 1998. 98, I was struggling. You wouldn't see it from the outside looking in. I just built my first house, had a great job, great family, great community, and I just was struggling, and dealing with depression, dealing with low self-esteem. It all culminated in February of '98 when I tried to commit suicide. You know, you go through things like that, and you realize, you mentioned I'm a man of faith, so God had other plans for me, and really launched me on a journey from that point forward. And we fast forward a little bit, 2002, working for my dad. He owned a business. We were living in Orlando, Florida at the time. But when 9/11 hit, it really destroyed our business, and it took about half our revenue away from us. So I ended up getting fired by my dad. But it was probably one of the best things for my career, because it launched me into healthcare, where I spent over 20 years of my career in, culminating with my last few executive positions. But if we fast forward a little bit more, talking about adversity, 2016, I experienced a bout with blindness in my right eye. I actually went completely blind in my right eye. And it was like that for about a month until I started regaining, went through a lot of tests, a lot of treatments, gained back about half the sight in that right eye. Today, I'll tell you, I can't even tell that there's issues there. And then fast forward a little bit more, 21, 22, I had back-to-back heart attacks. As we talk about adversity, and then we talk about what you should not do, in my heart attack in 2021, I had the heart attack on a Saturday. I had stents on a Sunday, and I went back to work on Monday. I would never advise anyone.
No, you didn't.
I did. That's my claim to fame. I'm not sure if it's really a claim. But then in 2022, I had another heart attack on Labor Day of 2022, September 6th, and I took 6 weeks off. And really, that's really when I figured out that so many leaders think that it's selfish to put some focus on yourself. I'm here to tell you, if you don't put the right amount of focus on your well-being, your cup's going to be empty, and you have nothing to give your organization. You have nothing to give your team. And then we'll talk about that here in just a minute. And then last year, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. You would think it came out of left field, but in 2012, that's when I first had the MRIs and they first discovered the lesions. But we just didn't do anything about them until 2024. And I started infusion treatments last year, and that's what led to me retiring early from healthcare. I still do some consulting in healthcare, but I'm a different person than I was in 16, 21, 22, and even in 2024 today on how I care for myself and the amount of focus I put on my well-being.
Wow. Well, now when you say healthcare, what the experience I've had with those types of people have been like hospital administrators. Is that the sort of thing that, or like a clinic administrator? Is that the sort of thing that you were retiring from?
Yes, I took a little different path. So I started as an EMT in the ER in Orlando. I ended my career as the vice president of client delivery at Tenet Healthcare out of Dallas. And essentially what I did is I had oversight for the project management office, the field services or IT folks out across our 1,000 facilities. And then I had what's a team called the clinical informatics teams. And they deal with things that have to pertain with workflow for physicians and nurses. And then I also had a team that handled acquisitions and divestitures from an IT perspective.
But I can see where that might completely overwhelm you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had about 300 people. And I will tell you, when I was in it, I thought, listen, I will tell you right now, no one is successful at multitasking. I thought I was a professional multitasker. I had 3 jobs that spread across 4 different companies because we were a large organization and essentially had 4 organizations. Yeah, burnout's a real thing, and it can happen to anyone, especially when you don't listen to what your body's telling you and you just keep going and going.
I'm with you. I've been a multitasker pretty much my whole adult life, but I ask myself questions about things about whether they really need to be done or not. What's most important?
Yes,
right.
I do that now.
Yeah,
I should. Yeah. We should have met. We should have met 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the other thing that you haven't really talked about, but it's kind of, for me, it's in the background. What about family? Going through, you've got all this business stuff going on, and how did this adversity in your life impact family?
Yeah, so I will tell you, so it impacted negatively my family, my time, my relationships. But as I began to focus more on myself, I really became more intentional about the time that I spent with my wife. You mentioned earlier, my wife for 26 years. I've got a 25-year-old and a 22-year-old. Both have families. I have grandchildren, one from each one of them. And it really made me focus on my quality time. Listen, when I was in the midst of my healthcare executive role, I would be on this podcast with you. I would have my iPad over here checking email, and I potentially may even be on another call in my other ear when I was really multitasking. So
Wow.
I've eliminated all of that, and I really am intentional about right now. Right now, 6 to 7 is time with Bonita. You
Right.
know, you know. After that is family time. And listen, so many people think that you can't put time for yourself on your schedule. Your calendar will let you do that, and you should do that. So I've become more intentional, and my time is quality time with my family.
Well, I don't remember exactly the saying, but there's a saying that talks about if you don't make time for your health and your family, then down the road, you're going to have to make time because your health will deteriorate and you won't be able to take care of anything or anybody. And I
That's
firmly believe that.
100%.
Well, let's talk about probably that lowest point there. You had talked about one of the hardest battles that you walked through was depression and even a suicide attempt. You know what's interesting, Mike? I had a conversation earlier today with a gal whose husband committed suicide 3 years ago, and she is still trying to wrap her head around that. They have kids and everything. And so I thought, well, that's interesting that, because I don't know how you get to such a low point that you even consider that. So can you take us back to that season? What was happening in your life and what led you to that breaking point?
Yeah. So first of all, it was just like I said earlier, I just built my first house, had a great job, great relationships, and a wonderful, loving family. But my self-esteem when we moved from North Carolina to Florida, I said this earlier to somebody, I was a country boy. In North Carolina, it's good to be a country boy. In Orlando, when you're transitioning and you're still in middle school, it's not so good to be a country boy. And so my self-esteem started to get impacted there. I'm not blaming the move, but that's where it began to happen. And so by the time that was in 87, by the time I rolled around to 98, I hadn't done anything to resolve any of those issues I was dealing with. And I had a hard time asking for help. So the first thing I would tell someone that maybe listening to this and maybe battling with a similar issue is it's okay to ask for help. And that's different for everybody. For some people, that's professional help. For some people, it's a friend or a family member. And then to that family member or friend, all you have to do is listen, because I didn't think I could ask for help. So I was battling the depression, dark moment in my time. I didn't think I could ask for help. And, my self-esteem, I didn't like myself. I didn't like how I looked and talked and walked or really anything. And so I just got to a point where I said, okay, it's enough. And I'm very transparent these days. It took me 27 years to talk about this, and you're the fourth or fifth person and show that I've talked about this on. So it was tough. My choice of an attempt was pills, and it was hard to take the first one, but the next 20 were easy. So, and I was alone in my home, and I serve a big God that right after the attempt, my parents showed up at my house. And I only recently asked my parents last month, February, why they showed up at my house 27 years ago. And they said, something told us we needed to come to your house. And my mom said, we need to go. My dad said, no, let's not go right now. So I'm glad he listened to my mother. And then when they got to the house, I don't remember them being there. I can vividly remember still the attempt. I don't remember them arriving or carrying me to their car, but I remember being in their car.
But they knew
And my
that
mom,
they knew that you'd taken a bunch of pills.
they did not, but my mom told my dad we have to go to the hospital, and he said, I don't know why we need to go. And she said, we just need to go. And then at some point after that, they discovered I had taken the
Thank goodness
pills.
for your mother.
Yeah.
Thank goodness
yes,
she
I
was
agree.
listening.
Yes, mom's intuition. It's a real thing. So we got to the hospital, and I went through, several different tests and things that needed to be taken care of for life-saving measures. And so grateful to that team. And I spent a few days in the hospital, and then went through a process to begin healing and to begin recovery.
So did they figure it out in the hospital?
They did. Yeah, my parents figured it out on the way to the hospital because, believe it or not, one of their best friends was a pharmacist. So my mom just got on the phone with a pharmacist friend, and she told him what to do, and got to the ER. And yeah, it's a miserable process to have to go through, but it was a process I needed to go through to rid my body of what I had ingested.
Right.
So
how do you look back at that time period now? Are you looking back at it as what did I learn, or what how do you look back at that? Do you beat yourself up, or I'm hoping you're going, what can I learn from that?
I've learned. I don't beat myself up. I did for a long time because I thought it made me a weak person, and whether or not it made me a weak person at the time or not, we'll leave that for a later time. But now I look at it as a way that I can help people today, and people listening to this broadcast right now, or listening to a recording later, that may be going through a similar situation. And let me tell you something, and I mean this from my heart. If you feel like you don't have someone to talk to, listen, there'll be ways that you'll know to reach out to me from this broadcast, and reach out to me. I'd be happy to listen to you and talk to you about what I went through. But I look back at it as
I want to just make sure that I interject that on the podcast website, askgoodquestionspodcast.com, there's a bonus downloads place, and that is where I will put your information, and people can reach out to you. Or if you want to share, I know there's like a national suicide line. I know there's different sources out there for people. So all of that will be on the information there for people to access later.
Yep, and all great resources. My advice is reach out to someone. Don't hear me that it was the right thing for me not to reach out for help, because it was the wrong thing. So yeah, I look at it back
by the grace of God. By the grace of God and by the grace of your mother.
Yes, that is 100% correct. So yeah, it was definitely a learning opportunity for me, and I've learned a lot from it, and able to help people now.
So, sometimes, with my big turning point in my life was a terrible divorce that I had to deal with 25 years ago. But now, today, as a financial advisor, I can't tell you how many times somebody has said, oh, you need to talk to Bonita because she's been through it. And it's like, sometimes those crazy challenges in your life turn out to be the way that you can be empathetic, and you can help somebody to get through something because they know that you understand where they're going through, or at least, you have some idea of what they're going through.
Yeah.
So then, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because we truly never walk in each other's shoes.
No.
Someone may say, I've been in your shoes. Well, no, you haven't, because I've been through different situations in my life. We've been through similar circumstances, and we can be there to help each other, but we've never truly experienced the same thing that each other has.
No, because we're all unique.
Yes.
Well, so moving on. So thank goodness that the help was there and you got through that. Now, moving forward, MS, for crying out loud. How did that come up?
So it originally reared its head in 2012. I had, and I don't even recall, I think it was high blood pressure or headaches or something. Something triggered my neurologist to do a CAT scan followed by an MRI. And the CAT scan showed some shadows, so they did an MRI. This was 2012, and they discovered lesions on the brain, which are caused by MS. And in June of 12, they said, "Michael, you have MS." And I said, "Wow, are you sure you have the right patient? Because that just came out of left field."
Yeah.
And so I lived for 6 months in 2012 that I have MS. And then in 2012, I do a follow-up with the neurologist. He decides he wants to do a spinal tap. Spinal tap will, supposed to confirm or deny whether or not you have MS. And he did the spinal tap. The fluid was clear, so they said, "You don't have MS." So then we fast forward from 2012 all the way to 2024, actually 2023, when I started having symptoms again. Balance issues, memory issues,
Wow.
and I can remember sitting in a meeting with my COO and my CIO, and I'm a very decisive person. I can ingest information and make decisions quickly. And I was sitting in that meeting and I could not answer questions. I couldn't even understand what they were talking about.
Oh, wow.
So I go to my primary care doctor in December of 23, and he decides he's going to go ahead and order the MRI himself and then schedule a neurology consult. Well, the December 31st of 23, I had the MRI. It shows that there were more lesions now. That in 12 there was 3 to 5. Now there's 12 to 15 lesions on my brain, and so being a healthcare executive and being a very impatient person, I didn't want to wait the 4 months it was going to take for me to see a neurologist here locally. So me and my wife flew down to West Palm Beach because, we own a lot of hospitals for the system I worked with. And there was a world-renowned neurologist in West Palm Beach that I went and saw. The only problem is he was world-renowned in Parkinson's. And I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, not MS. And so we went on medication for Parkinson's. We did that for 6 months until I was able to get in and see a neurologist at the local MS clinic here in Charlotte. And the first thing she did was take me off of Parkinson's meds and said, "You have MS, and I'm going to show you why." And last July, we started infusion treatments. And those are used to slow down the progression. It's not used to treat any of the symptoms I already have.
Is that like the stem cell?
Yeah, similar. Yeah, this attacks a specific cell within the body that causes the MS. So for me, I'm blessed. I only have to have them twice a year. But me and my wife really got on a kick of, we only eat, we don't eat anything processed. We do things like cryo treatment to lower the inflammation in my body, IV therapy treatments to make sure I get vitamins infused into my body. I do something called patching, which is phototherapy, and it actually is just looks like a little Band-Aid, and it redirects the light and energy that emits from your body. And that's basically healed me from the pain that was associated with MS. And so I mean, if you saw me walk into your office building or your home, you wouldn't even know I have MS because, like I said, I'm truly blessed, and the symptoms are very minor right now compared to what they were.
Well, you had mentioned in the information you sent me about how this whole MS thing, it seems to have shaped your spiritual life. Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah, it really has. It's created a lot of trust for me in the Lord, and I could sit here and say my depression, suicide attempt, the heart attacks, the MS, are what defines me, but it doesn't. I have a relationship with Christ that defines truly who I am, and that's who I put my faith and trust in. Because if not, I mean, the MS, the heart attacks, all the healthcare stuff I've been through, I mean, it's enough to put a man down. And I'm a pretty big guy. Yep, I am. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that as the show goes on,
Yes.
on what I'm trying to do to help people.
Well, yeah, I think all of this is leading up to writing a book.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's your target? Who are you writing this book for?
So the book is called Project Self, and it's moving from exhausted to empowered when facing burnout. And so initially, and this just started in January, and September 6th is the release date. So it's pretty quick turnaround for writing a book. But when I started, I got the idea that when I semi-retired from the healthcare industry, I wanted the burnout rate in healthcare is 50%, and that includes physicians, doctors, administrators. Wow. It's 50%. For leaders in general, it's about 80% of those who experience some form of burnout in their career. So it's very prevalent in all industries. So I wanted to be able to put out something that showed that told my story, the pitfalls of my within my career, and because a lot of it was self-inflicted. The MS is definitely not self-inflicted, but the heart attacks, the blindness, some of the healthcare and the burnout experience were self-inflicted. So I wanted to find a way to be able to help people. And so the target audience is really leaders in any industry. And the book is really cool because I've got a lot of collaborators, from healthcare executives to business owners to pastors to professional athletes, and to military. All of them have experienced burnout in some form or fashion. And the way, and my story is going to weave through all of their life experiences. And then at the end of each chapter, each of the collaborators is given a practical guide on how you can either avoid burnout or recover from it. And it's across the board. It's across the board on how people deal with that. I personally have the 4 R's that I use, and it's rest, reset, recharge, and recommit. So when you look at rest, I mean, rest is different. I'm not talking about going to bed and going to sleep. I mean, for me, rest, me personally, that means whatever is going on in your life, personal or professional, stop, just hit the pause button and walk away from whatever is going on. So that's my rest. My reset is my mindset. So I'm gonna find a way to reset my mind around whatever's going on. And then to recharge, again, this looks different for everybody. That could be a book, that could be walk, write, journal, pray, meditate. It's different for everybody. And then to recommit. Now, this is the same for everybody. When you recommit, something has to change. You can't just go right back into the same situation the exact same way that you were. So you have to change something. That's either your mindset, that's the way that you're approaching it, having some sort of plan in mind of how you're going to approach that differently. So that recommit is changing something before you just step right back into it, because the circle is never ending. It's just gonna circle right back around. You're gonna be in the same situation.
When I had thought about starting a podcast for at least a couple of years before I found these wonderful people that I do this podcast with. Mm-hmm. And when they asked me, what do you want to call it? I was very clear that I wanted to call it Ask Good Questions, because all of the mistakes and all of the heartache and a lot of the challenges that I've had in my life had been because I didn't either ask good questions or I didn't know what the questions were to ask. And so when I'm thinking about you and your book and that, especially the recommit, I think there's got to be, what kind of new questions do you ask yourself? And what's the purpose? There's got to be a higher purpose for your life that will drive you forward, that will drive you on to something different than what you've had in the past.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So, I used to struggle with the questions, but the reason I struggled is because, I would usually find myself in a burnout phase. I would usually find myself trying to multitask. I wasn't present. I wasn't focused. But when you're present, intentional, in the moment, and you're listening, I mean, the questions just come to mind. I mean, so sitting here, I mean, this back and forth that we do, I love it today 5 years ago, I would have said, oh my goodness, I can't do that. So, but it's because I'm very focused, I'm present, I'm in the moment. So the questions are just going to naturally come to me because you have the right mindset, the questions are going to come. I love the fact that this is called Ask Good Questions because it's the only way you're going to get information from a lot of people. Because they're just not going to give it.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. Well, this whole aspect of helping leaders that are going through similar situations, what do you see for that for the future?
So the book will come out in September. We've put together, I have a coach, and never had a coach before this year.
I've actually got a coach on in a couple of weeks.
Oh, I mean,
coaches are great. It's a great thing to do. I'm glad to hear that.
And remember, I never used to ask for help, but it's not a sign of weakness, because people bring different perspectives. So my coach just looks at everything from a different perspective than I do. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't make me a weak person or someone that can't handle the work that I'm trying to do. So I would foresee some coaching in the future, but to start with the book, we put together some keynote speaking. So I'd love to go out to some various different industries, healthcare being one, entrepreneurial being another one, because so many people, entrepreneurs, will have to start out part-time, or they'll start out struggling because they don't have staff. So if I can help them, I would love to be able to partner and come alongside them to help. But just giving, I went through some very obvious pitfalls as I look back and some self-inflicted pitfalls. And I want to be able to help these leaders avoid those pitfalls, because if you make some tweaks in your personal and professional life, it's pretty easy to avoid the pitfalls that I fell into. So,
well, I want to kind of wrap all this together. If there's people that are thinking, oh, I don't think I have any issues, but I know I kind of do. What would you say, thinking about the burnout, the working too much, the not taking care of yourself? What would be the 5 things that you would want? I bet you've got them too. What would be the 5 things that you would say, here's the most important things you need to do in your life?
So I'll make a couple of statements, and I think I'll answer your question as I do. When you focus on yourself, you have more time to give. Give in these areas to the focus of the mission and your goals. And that can be, if you have your own business, you're able to better focus on your mission. If you're an executive in a large organization, you're able to focus on their goals and the strategic direction that they want you to go. You become a role model because people will see, listen, I've got 2 fantastic mentors, and they work a lot of hours and every day on vacations, never stop working. And that may be great for a season of time, a very brief season of time in your career, but you can't sustain it. So you become a better role model when you put focus on yourself and you take care of your well-being. You're a better leader. You become a better leader because your cup is not empty and you're able to give. You have the right mindset, you're able to give back to your team, which in turn will become stronger and more productive. So if you have your own business, you're going to produce more, which creates more revenue. If you're a leader at a large organization, you're going to produce more, which is going to elevate your career. And the list goes on and on and on. So let me say these couple things. It's not selfish to care for yourself. I have a keynote called Unselfish, Making Way for Me, because so many people, especially those that are servant leaders, I'm a servant leader, and I love to give. It's not selfish. I used to think it was selfish. Well, I don't have time to do this. I got to take care of my team. I got to take care of the organization because I represent them. No. When you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. I'm up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning now. I walk 3 to 5 miles a day now. I read. I'm on my 9th book for the year. I read 1 book last year. I'm on 9 in the first quarter. So your passion returns. That's the next thing. Your passion will return as you care for yourself. And this is something one of my mentors told me, and I didn't quite understand it when she told me, but she said, lean into discomfort. Don't run from it. So many people, if you're a leader, you're going to come across things that are just hard.
Yeah.
And my coach loves to talk about things that are hard. A good leader is going to tackle those. My old mentor says, lean into it and take care of it. And then lastly, and then I'll stop for a minute, be okay with who you are and be the best version possible. And you're not going to be able to do that if you don't care for yourself and take care of your own well-being.
There's I have heard a lot about work-life balance. And here's my latest version of what I think about that. And I want to get your response about that. I think that in some ways that's stupid, that you can't, it's really hard to have work-life balance. What I like to reframe that to be, when you need to do something, do it 100%, do it full out, but then make sure, have you ever heard the rocks in the bucket analogy about putting the big rocks in first, which is, your faith, your family, your health, and then put everything else in. And one thing that I do, well, like you're talking about your schedule, I'm the same way. My mornings, every single morning is working out and scripture study, journaling, reading. That's how I start every single day. And I love it because I feel like those are the big rocks that I'm, the big things that I want to make sure I get into every single day. So what's your thoughts about the whole work-life balance deal?
I love the question because my book tackles it head on. And I was just talking about this before we came on here. So you cannot separate your personal life and your professional life. Yeah. You have to integrate them. And to your point, that's going to be different for everybody, depending on your marriage. You got kids, how old your kids are, you got grandkids, but you have to find a way to integrate the two, because when you separate them, you do a disservice either to your family or you do a disservice to your career. So you have to find a way to bring them together, and then you will find balance. If you try to just you're going to juggle. I mean, if you try to find a way to keep them separately, all you're doing is juggling. So find a way to integrate them, because you can be successful at them. I never thought you could, but you can. And you're going to go through seasons and ebbs and flows, but you're going to find that happy medium. And then those ebbs and flows are going to start to become a much smoother line. And especially as you have the right priorities, you focus on your well-being and you're caring for yourself the way that you need to be.
That's awesome. Well, I'm thinking it's almost time to wrap this up. The time has gone fast, and I know the time goes fast when I know that I've been talking about things that are important and that are, and that, potentially can be great things to share with those that are listening. So do you have any final thoughts? What would you say to sum this all up?
So a friend of mine gave me a couple of sayings the other day that he uses. Today's excuses become tomorrow's problems. So and that goes back to what I talked about leaning into your discomfort and those hard things. Don't put them off. Tackle the hard things first. Someone once told me that whenever, that's the big rocks. As like one of the worst things that I ever had to do and leaders have to do is when they have to let a team member go, when they have to fire someone. Mm-hmm. And someone gave me advice years ago and says, when you walk into that room, you have the hard part of the conversation first. You just say, Johnny, sorry, this is why, and we're letting you go, and then have the conversation. So lean into that discomfort. Don't put it off, because today's excuses become tomorrow's problems. And lastly, today's encouragement becomes tomorrow's victories. So be someone that encourages, be someone that's positive, and don't allow circumstances to dictate how you're going to act and how you're going to act towards other people on your team, your colleagues, friends, family, or people strangers that you encounter. So be an encouragement, because those are going to be tomorrow's victories. And you may not ever even know the outcome of those, but you're going to help somebody along the way.
Really what you're talking about is a whole discussion about integrity.
Yeah.
And authenticity, really.
Yes. Two huge words.
Yes.
Powerful words.
Absolutely. And really, I think that when you're authentic and when you live your life with integrity, that's when you can give back the most. And that's when you can, be of value and create value. I think that one of the things that we should be focusing on is how can we create more value? What can we do that will really be of value? Both you and I have been around the block a few times. So it's like, look at all this life experience. It's like, I want to put it to use. I want it to be something that can be helpful out there for other people.
100%. I love that word. I won't do anything where I can't bring value.
Yeah.
It's just not worth my time anymore.
Right.
I don't want to take from people.
Well, I think that you have asked a lot of good questions in your life, and I think you've asked better questions as you've gone along and learned some things, wouldn't you say?
I would say you are 100% right, Bonita. I've learned.
So we are going to wrap this up today, and like we talked about, there will be an information sheet or flyer or PDF download on the podcast website, so that Michael will have the different resources there to share. And we are so grateful that you have joined us today. And make sure you ask good questions. Make sure that you keep a lookout for Mike Price's new book that'll be coming out. We'll let you know when that happens. And thank you again so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Today's episode is over, but we did ask good questions again, didn't we? Don't miss out as we broadcast live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. Join Bonita Bell-Andersen next week for more conversations with experts on finances, retirement, behavioral finance issues, health and wellness, and more. Until then, remember to ask good questions.